You could just, like, spot a good financial opportunity right away. See a rundown house and be like, wait a minute, I could make a ton of money if I fix this up and sold off the land.
Well, that's the kind of thinking Robert Kiyosaki wants to teach everyone in his book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah, it's sold millions of copies all over the world. So we're going to dive into some of the core lessons today, see if we can't make sense of it all, even if we don't have, MBAs or anything.
One of the things that makes this book so different is that it's based on Kiyosaki comparing two father figures.
Oh, yeah, the whole rich dad, poor dad thing, right?
Exactly. His own father was super educated, but really struggled with money.
The poor dad.
Right. But then there's his friend's dad, the rich dad, who built his own business and did really well for himself. So Kiyosaki uses that contrast, those two different mindsets, to teach his lessons.
And one of the biggest things I got out of the book was this idea of assets versus liabilities.
It's such a fundamental concept, but so many people get it wrong.
I know, right? Yeah. He skips all the complicated stuff and just boils it down to cash flow.
Simple.
Assets put money in your pocket, liabilities take it out.
Makes you think twice about that fancy new car, doesn't it?
Definitely. So, how do you actually start building your own asset column? Where do you even begin?
Well, he gives this really clear example of buying a small house for $45,000.
Okay.
Then he rented it out and eventually sold it for $95,000. Boom.
Nice.
Classic example of an asset that brings in money from rent, and then you get even more when you sell.
So you don't need a ton of money to get started, is what you're saying.
Exactly. And he also talks about this idea of minding your own business.
At first I was a little confused by that. I was like, wait a minute. I have a job. That's my business.
That's what most people think, right?
Yeah.
But what he really means is building up those assets alongside your regular job.
Got it.
It's like having an entrepreneur's mindset. Doesn't matter if you're working 9 to 5 or building some side hustle.
He actually shares how he did this himself while working at Xerox. I mean, it shows you don't have to be born rich to become wealthy, right?
Totally. It's about knowing how to make money work for you instead of the other way around.
Right.
He argues that rich people don't work for money. They build systems and acquire assets. Those are the things that generate income.
Like that example where he buys a condo for $50,000.
Yeah.
Rents it out, and the cash flow covers all the expenses every month.
There you go. Passive income. Money is working for you even while you're sleeping.
Pretty sweet deal. He also talks a lot about getting over fear.
Oh, absolutely. That's a huge part of it.
So many people are afraid to take risks with money.
Fear of failure, fear of losing it all, even just fear of looking stupid.
It's true. And he says those are the things that keep most people stuck.
Stuck in the rat race, as he calls it.
So how do we break free?
Yeah.
What are some things we can actually do to get over that fear?
Well, Kiyosaki believes finding a mentor is really important.
Someone who's already done what you want to do.
Exactly. Someone to learn from, someone who can show you the ropes.
He also says you have to think big. Focus on what you want, not what you don't want. So instead of thinking, I don't want to be poor, it's more like, I want to be financially free. Something like that.
That's the idea. It's about shifting your perspective, seeing abundance instead of scarcity.
And then he talks about taking action, even if it's just small steps at first.
The important thing is to get started and just keep moving forward.
Speaking of moving forward, there's this whole section in the book about taxes and corporations.
Yeah.
And it's pretty fascinating.
Oh, yeah. That's where things can get a little controversial.
He basically challenges this idea that the rich get taxed more than everyone else.
Right. And he really digs into the history of taxes, how corporations work, all of that.
Hold on. Is he saying we should all be incorporating ourselves and finding loopholes?
He's very clear that he's not talking about doing anything illegal. It's about understanding the rules.
Okay.
He says wealthy people know how to use those rules to their advantage.
Like legally.
Totally legally. They know how to protect their assets and, minimize their tax burden.
Interesting. He actually compares it to Robin Hood.
Oh, yeah, I remember that part.
Most people think of Robin Hood as a hero, but Kiyosaki says he's a crook.
Because he's stealing from the rich.
Well, his point is that it's actually the middle class who are getting robbed.
Through taxes and stuff.
Exactly. It's definitely a different way of looking at things.
It is. Makes you think.
So we've talked about assets versus liabilities, minding your own business, getting over that fear, and this whole thing about taxes and corporations.
A lot to unpack, for sure.
It is. But for someone who's just starting out, just beginning to think about their financial future, what's the most important thing to take away from all this?
I think the biggest takeaway is that you have to learn about money.
Financial literacy.
Exactly. Kiyosaki argues that most people never get taught how to manage money. They learn how to work for it, sure.
But not how to make it work for them.
Right. So it's not just about how much money you make, it's about what you do with it.
Makes sense.
It's about understanding how money works, how to invest it wisely, how to build a system that'll make you money even when you're not working.
Wow. That's a pretty powerful idea. I mean, how do you even figure out what the right system is? There's so many options out there.
Well, that's something we can definitely dive into deeper as we keep exploring Rich Dad, Poor Dad. When we left off, we were talking about systems and figuring out how to, make money work for you.
Right. And Kiyosaki really stresses that it's not just about knowing the numbers. It's a whole mindset thing too, isn't it?
Definitely. It's about how you think about money. Like, do your beliefs hold you back or do they help you grow?
So instead of saying, I can't afford that, you should be asking yourself, how can I afford that?
Exactly. It's a totally different way of looking at things. Most people are stuck in that earn, spend, pay bills routine. Kiyosaki wants you to break free from that by building assets.
Things that put money back in your pocket.
Right on. He uses that great example, remember? Buying that rundown house for $45,000, fixes it up a bit and sells it a year later for $95,000. Made a quick $75,000.
Just like that.
Just by understanding how real estate works, you don't need a ton of money to start either. I mean, he started small and look what happened.
It's encouraging to hear that. He also talks about looking for those opportunities that other people might miss, like, what was it, distressed properties?
Yeah, distressed properties, foreclosures, places where you can get a good deal because everyone else is scared off, but you got to have some guts to do that,
He even says that when markets are down, that's when you can find the best bargains. It takes courage to go against the crowd.
And speaking of courage, wasn't there a whole section on overcoming fear in general?
Oh yeah, he's big on that. Fear of failure, fear of risk, even just fear of looking stupid.
Those are real fears, though.
They are.
Cool.
But they're also the things that hold people back from achieving what they want. And finding a good mentor can help with that. Someone who's already been there, done that.
Someone to show you the way. Yeah, he actually says, find someone who has done what you want to do, take them to lunch and pick their brain.
I love that.
Me too. So practical, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
He believes that learning from other people's experiences is like a shortcut to success.
And then, even with a good mentor, you still got to take action.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
He's all about action. Even if it's just baby steps, to start doing something.
Don't just talk about it. Be about it.
Exactly. He's got another good one. Don't wait for the perfect opportunity. Create it.
Love that.
It's about being proactive, taking control of your own destiny, your financial destiny. And part of that is just constantly learning, expanding your financial IQ.
He even says, sometimes you should take a job for what you can learn from it, not just for the paycheck.
Yeah, think of it as an investment in yourself. Develop those skills that'll pay off big time down the road.
Now, we talked about this a little bit before, but Kiyosaki gets a lot of attention for what he says about taxes and corporations. Some people find it pretty controversial. Yeah, I can see that. He argues that the rich don't get taxed the way most people think they do.
And some people hear that and they think he's saying we should all be looking for loopholes or something.
But he's very clear he's not talking about anything illegal.
Okay, good.
It's about understanding how the system works. Wealthy people know the rules, the tax laws, how corporations work.
And they use that knowledge to their advantage.
Exactly. They know how to protect their assets and minimize their tax burden.
Legally.
Totally legally. And he makes this interesting comparison with Robin Hood. Most people see Robin Hood as a hero, right? Stealing from the rich to give to the poor.
Yeah, classic hero.
But Kiyosaki sees it differently. He says it's the middle class that's getting robbed.
Through taxes.
Right. Not the super rich. It's a pretty bold statement.
It is. But it definitely gets you thinking. So we've covered assets, businesses, fear, even Robin Hood. I mean, what else is there? What's the overall message here?
Well, I think it all comes back to financial education. You have to learn about money.
That keeps coming up.
It's so important. It's like having a superpower in today's world. Because let's face it, most people never learn this stuff in school.
It's true. Nobody ever taught me how to manage money, just how to earn it.
Right. So it's not just about how much you make, it's about what you do with it. He compares it to learning a new language.
Yeah.
You got to know the vocabulary and the grammar of money if you want to be fluent,
That's a good analogy.
Yeah.
And what I like about Kiyosaki is that he doesn't just talk about these things in theory. He shares real life stories.
Oh, absolutely. He uses his own experiences, his own successes and failures. It makes it so much more relatable, don't you think?
Yeah, definitely. And it reminds you that he's not some ivory tower guru. He's been in the trenches.
Like that story about the comic book library he started as a kid. Remember that one?
Yeah, the one where he and his friend convinced this distributor to give them free comic books and they set up shop in a basement.
Charged kids 10 cents to read them. Classic. You know, it's a great example of how you can start building financial intelligence at any age. You don't need a lot of money to start a business.
And it reinforces that message about finding creative ways to make money work for you. Like they were using other people's resources, understanding cash flow, all that stuff.
Exactly. And Kiyosaki truly believes that anyone can achieve financial freedom. Doesn't matter where you come from or how much money you have to start with.
He says it's not about luck or privilege. It's about mindset, developing your skills, and taking consistent action.
He's really providing a roadmap for people, you know? Practical strategies, inspiring stories really gets you thinking differently about money.
One of my favorite stories is the one about that group of super rich businessmen in 1923. They had a big gathering at the Edgewater Beach Hotel.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one. Turns out money doesn't solve everything, does it?
Right. A lot of those guys ended up bankrupt or worse. It really shows you that financial intelligence isn't just about making money. It's about managing it, understanding risk, building a solid foundation, and having a strong mental game.
Definitely. And sometimes it's about finding your own path, you know? Not everyone's meant for a traditional job or career.
Kiyosaki wants you to think about what matters most to you and find a way to make a living doing that. So much of this is about finding alignment between your work and your values.
Absolutely. So much of this book has been about big ideas. But what about something practical? Like, what can people actually do to start putting these ideas into action?
Great question. I think the first thing is to just start learning.
Educate yourself. Read books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, attend seminars, listen to podcasts like this one.
There's so much information out there.
And the more you learn, the better decisions you'll make about your money.
And Kiyosaki really stresses knowing the difference between assets and liabilities. Remember, an asset puts money in your pocket. A liability takes it out.
Start looking at your spending habits through that lens. What are you buying that's actually building wealth for you?
Another simple thing, but it makes a big difference, is to track your income and expenses.
Yeah, get a handle on where your money's going. Are there areas where you could cut back without really impacting your quality of life?
Even little changes add up over time. And then you can use those savings to invest in those income-generating assets.
And don't be afraid to look for ways to increase your income. Could you ask for a raise at work? Take on a side hustle. Maybe learn a new skill that's in high demand.
He even talks about, like, flipping burgers or delivering pizzas if that's what it takes to get started. It's about the hustle, right?
Definitely. And it's not just about saving, it's about building your asset column.
He suggests starting small, maybe with a rental property or a small business.
Once you get the hang of that, then you can explore other investments, stocks, bonds, that kind of thing.
He even talked about gold and silver.
But remember, it's a marathon, not a sprint. You gotta have a long-term vision. Don't get caught up in those get-rich-quick schemes.
It's about building a solid foundation.
For lasting wealth. Wealth that can give you the freedom and abundance to live the life you want.
Because it's about more than just money, isn't it?
Oh, for sure. It's about creating a life of purpose. A life where you have the time and resources to do the things you love.
And a big part of that is surrounding yourself with the right people.
Yeah, find those mentors, maybe join an investment club. Connect with other people who are on the same journey as you. Don't try to do it all alone.
And remember, it's okay to make mistakes. You're going to learn from them.
That's how you grow.
Kiyosaki says, the size of your success is measured by the strength of your desire, the size of your dream, and how you handle disappointment along the way. So true.
Totally. Now, while Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a great starting point, it's important to remember it's just one perspective.
It is, and we always encourage our listeners to do their own research, look at things from different angles.
And most importantly, develop your own financial philosophy.
Because what works for one person might not work for another. And you always got to make sure any investment strategy you choose is right for you.
Fits your risk tolerance and your goals.
All that good stuff. But overall, I think Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a really powerful and inspiring book.
Oh, absolutely. It can really shift how you think about money and open up all sorts of new possibilities.
It encourages you to think differently, challenge those old assumptions, take control of your financial future.
Really take control.
And that's a message that can resonate with anyone who's feeling stuck or unsatisfied with their financial situation.
So as we move into the final part of our deep dive, let's think about what we've learned from Rich Dad, Poor Dad, even if we don't agree with every single thing he says.
What are the big takeaways?
For me, it all comes back to financial literacy. Understanding how money works is essential. It's like a key that unlocks so many doors.
It's about taking control instead of feeling like money's controlling you.
Right. And he also talks a lot about mindset. What you believe about money can either limit you or empower you. Kiyosaki wants you to believe that you can achieve your goals.
He's big on taking action and not being afraid to make mistakes.
Because mistakes are just part of the process.
Yeah, failure is just part of the journey.
It's how we learn and grow.
And ultimately, Kiyosaki wants you to find your own path.
Create a life that is both financially secure and personally fulfilling.
He wants you to ask yourself, what's my definition of wealth?
Is it just about money? Or is it about something bigger than that?
So we've been talking a lot about the good stuff in Rich Dad, Poor Dad, but I think it's only fair to point out that not everyone's a fan.
Yeah, he's definitely got his critics. And some of what they say is worth thinking about, for sure.
Like what? What are some of the main criticisms?
Well, some financial experts think his strategies are too risky for most people, or they say he makes investing sound way too easy.
Oversimplifies it.
Exactly. Some
Okay.
people also find his tone a bit, preachy, even arrogant sometimes.
I can see that. And look, just because he's been successful doesn't mean everyone who follows his advice will be right.
Of course not. That's why it's always important to be a little skeptical, no matter who's giving you financial advice.
Don't just take anyone's word for it. Do your own research.
Absolutely. Read different opinions, look at things from all angles, and make sure any investment strategy you choose, actually aligns with your own situation.
Risk tolerance, your financial goals, all that.
Right. Because Kiyosaki's background, his connections, that might have given him some advantages that most people just don't have. What worked for him might not work for everybody.
It's like they say, your mileage may vary.
Exactly. But I don't think that means we should just throw the whole book out the window.
No, definitely not. Even if you don't buy into everything he says, there's still a lot of good stuff in Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
A lot of valuable insights.
His emphasis on financial literacy, building assets, taking control of your money, those are all important messages. Those are things everyone should be thinking about.
And his writing style is really engaging, I think. He uses those stories, those real-life examples, to make things easy to understand.
Even when he's talking about complicated stuff.
Right. One of the things I really like about the book is that it makes you think differently about money.
He challenges the status quo. All those assumptions we've been taught about how money works, how to get ahead, he makes you question all of that.
He wants you to think for yourself. Don't just blindly follow what everyone else is doing.
And he really wants you to take control. Don't be a passive bystander in your own financial life.
Exactly.
If you're feeling stuck, if you're not happy with your financial situation, he wants you to know that you can change it.
You have the power to create a better future for yourself.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's think about what we can take away from Rich Dad, Poor Dad, even if we don't agree with every single thing Kiyosaki says. What are the big lessons here? What are the things we can actually do?
Well, I think one of the most important things is to just keep learning about money. Never stop educating yourself about personal finance.
Knowledge is power, right?
It really is, especially when it comes to money. The more you know, the better choices you can make, the more control you have over your financial life.
And Kiyosaki's a big believer in taking action. Don't just sit around thinking about it, do something.
Even if it's just a small step, the important thing is to get started and then keep going.
Build that momentum. And remember, it's okay to make mistakes.
Everyone makes mistakes. It's how you learn.
And it's how you grow.
Exactly. Now, another big takeaway for me is this idea of mindset. Your beliefs about money, whether you realize it or not, they have a huge impact on your financial success.
Kiyosaki really wants you to develop a positive money mindset. Believe that you can achieve your goals. Don't let those negative thoughts hold you back.
He's also really big on finding your own path. What works for one person might not work for another. You have to figure out what's right for you.
What's your definition of wealth? What does financial freedom look like to you? What are your goals?
Those are the questions he wants you to be asking yourself. It's not just about money. It's about creating a life that you love. A life that's both financially secure and personally fulfilling.
And that's a great note to end on.
It is. So if you're looking for a book that'll challenge you to think differently about money, a book that might just inspire you to take control of your financial future, I highly recommend checking out Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Even if you don't agree with everything Kiyosaki says, it's a book that'll make you think. It'll make you question those old assumptions. And it might just give you the push you need to start creating the life you've always dreamed of.
That's what it's all about, isn't it?
It is. So thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Rich Dad, Poor Dad. We hope you found it helpful, informative, and maybe even a little bit inspiring.
We always love hearing from our listeners, so be sure to leave a comment below and tell us what you thought of the book, what resonated with you, what are you going to do differently after reading it?
And be sure to subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into books, ideas, and all sorts of other fascinating topics.
Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and never stop pursuing your dreams.
And remember, you have the power to create the life you want.